of justifying your faith in terms of historicity or in terms of what's called scientific fact, you've lost it. Because that is where faith comes in. And this faith covers, as far as I'm concerned, all these different believers. I love to meet them, I love to be with them. And I can't really differentiate one from another as long as you have these two basic things, that we are children of eternity and not of time. We belong to the heavenly city, which is eternal, and not to the earthly city, which is temporal. And we share the fantastic joy and revelation of the incarnation in our love of incarnate God, who is Jesus. There's the basis for me of the whole thing. And everybody who has been aware of that, who sensed that, is my Christian brother, sister. I think that as far as our physical existence is concerned, the essential thing is to see it as a rather secondary aspect of our existence. I've noticed that men who are always taking their temperature are almost certain to get ill. And men who are always weighing themselves are almost certain to find their way onto a psychiatrist's couch. And men who are always thinking that they're developing some symptom of ill health are surely fated to become invalids. In other words, ultra-consciousness of one's physical existence is itself a sickness. And that's another thing that our way of life is liable to develop, partly through advertisements, which are always telling us that if only you'll swallow this pill, you won't have bad breath, or to ladies, if only you'll anoint your face with this particular thing, you'll be beautiful and everybody will want to sleep with you, and so on. All those advertisements tend to give an ultra-awareness of one's physical existence. And I think it is one of the many ills of a materialist view of life. When I gave up drinking some 12 or 15 years ago, not having been an alcoholic, but like most journalists, a fairly steady boozer, when I gave it up, and I used to visit the United States and see old friends there who would immediately say, let's have a drink. I don't drink anymore. It would be very disturbing to them, and they would try and persuade you to have a drink. And then I realized the only way out of it was I would say, I'm awfully sorry, old boy, but I'm on a regime. And by saying that, a look of reverence would come upon them, and they would feel, because I was talking about my physical condition, and they would never mention the subject again. It was always accepted, but you had to give this reason for it. I think that everything in our society makes people ultra-conscious of their bodies, and that happy people are the people who don't think about it. I don't know much. Of course, if you get really ill, it's absurd to say you won't think about it. But this excessive preoccupation with the state of your body, with what you eat, or how much you sleep, or whether you are, whether you can go for long walks and so on, I think it's itself a form of sickness and does inculcate a lot of sickness. Of course, another curious thing is that when you get to the end of your life, you find yourself very much looking forward to dying. This is, in the 20th century, almost like a sort of blasphemy to say this. It's an interesting thing, I think, worth thinking about, that you have the taboo on sex, and talking about sex has been lifted, but a new taboo has come in, which is death. Nobody likes to talk about it or to hear anybody talking about it. And I think the reason is clear that, again, if 20th century man regards himself as all-powerful, there's one snag in that, and that is he's going to die. And therefore, he wants to try and persuade himself that he won't die, or that it can be indefinitely postponed. When all that transplant business was on, it amused me rather, because it was obvious that what was really in people's mind was that if they could have all their spare parts replaced as they wore out, they could be kept on the road like old vintage cars, almost indefinitely. Well, such an immortality, I need scarcely say, makes no appeal to me at all. And I love the idea of dying. I love the idea of one's life coming to an end. Curiously enough, it makes life seem infinitely more beautiful than before, really. Rather like the end of a day, a beautiful day, and the last hours of light seem to carry all the beauty of the whole day. I feel utterly confident that living our span of time in this world, our 70 years and 10 whatever they may be, is not the whole story of our existence. This to me would be inconceivable. And therefore, there's a sequel. I know that I don't know what the sequel will be like. No man has ever known, and no man ever will know. It is a mystery. All you know is that there will be a sequel. And all the different ideas that have been presented for describing it are very charming. But of course, they're attempts to describe what cannot be described. So you have to accept the fact that no man living in time and in flesh can possibly know what it would be like to live in eternity, not in a body. He can't form any sort of concept of it. But the most terrible thing of all would be if life didn't, to me, would be if life didn't come to an end. If it went on and on and on. That would be hell. So I know that within the next 10 years, certainly, possibly within the next year, possibly next month, who knows? I mean, I've reached the stage in life when its end is within sight. And I find this nothing but a source of great joy. I leave the world, and as I leave it, I'm aware of its great beauty. I'm aware of the joys that have been in human companionship. And above all, in the absolute certainty that through it all, despite one's own follies, despite one's own wickedness, despite the many occasions when one's chosen the wrong course of action or chosen the wrong alternative, still that has been working out a process which is God's design for his creation, and therefore is a loving and not a hating process, is an orderly and not a chaotic process, is a universal and not a particular process. Obviously, our life hereafter will be in some way related to our life here on earth. And in that relationship lies the destiny that awaits us. But I await it without fear.